Once upon a time in Colombia, one man held an entire nation in his hands, with money, fear, and blood. He was the richest criminal in history, but there was one thing he could never escape: his own shadow. The people called him a hero. The government called him the devil. This is the story of Pablo Escobar. In the dusty hills of Medellin, in a slum ruled by poverty, a boy was born, Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria. Barefoot, with nothing in his pockets, but fire in his eyes. From an early age, he saw the cruelty of life. His mother struggled to survive on a teacher's salary. His father worked the land with hands cracked from labor. That's when a single vow formed in his mind: I will never be poor again. That promise would write his destiny, and from the narrow streets of Medellin, he would carve a path into the darkest chapter of history. As a young man, he started with small smuggling jobs. But Pablo's ambitions were never small. By the late 1970s, America had become addicted to a new drug, cocaine, the drug of the rich, and Pablo would turn that white dust into gold. His first shipment went unnoticed, but soon that white powder spread across continents. Every line inhaled in Los Angeles came from a warehouse in Medellin, and the owner of those warehouses was Escobar. Money began to flood in like a storm, so much that he hid cash in barns and buried it under fields. Rats were eating through stacks of bills, and his men fainted while counting the money. Escobar laughed and said, "Even the rats are rich now. One man, one city, one country. All of them were under his shadow. He had his own army, his own law, his own paradise. And that paradise had a name: the Medellin cartel. Every shipment brought millions, and every million brought blood. Rivals were executed, politicians silenced, judges bought. Colombia was no longer a country, it was his kingdom." But Escobar ruled not only with fear, he ruled with love. He built homes for the poor, schools for the children. To the people, he was Don Pablo. Some saw him as a savior, others as the devil himself. He wore the mask of a hero to hide his empire of crime. But beneath that mask, there was a man consumed by power, and power always devours its master. By 1989, Escobar had become one of Forbes' richest men. But as his empire grew, so did the fear. Rival cartels, the Cali Mafia, the Colombian government, and the DEA all united under one goal: to destroy Escobar. Bombs exploded across the country. Innocents died in the crossfire. Politicians were assassinated, journalists silenced. Colombia had become a battlefield. On one side, the state; on the other, Escobar, a man who had declared war on his own nation. He was no longer a trafficker. He was a nightmare wearing a crown. But even kings make mistakes, and Escobar's greatest mistake was believing he was a god. In 1991, he struck a deal with the government he would surrender, but on his terms. He built his own prison, a place he called La Catedral, the cathedral. Inside were bars, a pool, a disco, golden faucets. From the outside, it looked like a prison, but inside it was a palace. Yet no wall is high enough to block betrayal. The government turned against him, and Escobar realized the truth. His sanctuary had become his tomb. He escaped into the mountains, but freedom now meant running forever. The years of hiding began: safe houses, tunnels, secret hideouts. But no matter how far he ran, Medellin, the city he once owned, had abandoned him. The cartel was gone, the money vanished, the allies turned enemies. Escobar was alone. The man who once ruled with fear was now hunted like a ghost. And then came the day, December 2nd, 1993. A rooftop, a few police officers, a single breath. Over the radio, he spoke to his son for the last time. "Don't worry, my son. Your father will die a hero." Moments later, gunfire echoed through Medellin. The king had fallen. No crown, no throne, just silence. Beside him, a photograph of his mother. Perhaps in that final second, he was once again the barefoot boy from Medellin. The world watched as fear itself finally died. Years passed, his fortune vanished, his family fled, his empire turned to dust. But Pablo Escobar still lives in whispers, in films, in the dark corners of memory. To some, he is a monster, to others, a legend. But history whispers one truth: no power lasts forever, and no kingdom built on blood can ever stand. Escobar learned that too late. He didn't just sell cocaine, he sold a nation's soul, and in the end, he lost his own.